Welcome to the Emerging Podcast. I'm your host, Jamal Robinson. On today's show, we are speaking with Luis Lopez. Luis is a senior generative AI specialist working at Google Cloud, with experiences having led teams focused on AI and other emerging technologies at Amazon, Stripe, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. Luis migrated from Ecuador to America, and his parents were his role models, creating opportunities for Luis and giving him positive examples to follow. Luis has been an empathetic and curious technologist who's asked himself those deep philosophical questions that have guided his career path from selling used motorcycles online to selling Google's most powerful generative AI solutions to his top enterprise customers. I know you're going to enjoy the conversation with Luis, so let's get on to the show. Hey, Senor Lopez, thank you for joining the show today. Please introduce yourself to the guests.
Hey, Jamal. No, thank you for having me, man. My name is Luis Lopez. I am a senior customer engineer, specialized in AI ML, working at Google at the moment. Previously to that, I spent about a little bit over 5 years at Amazon. That's where we met, working at AWS. Where I did partnerships for a couple of years working with GSIs. Then I transitioned into the product team where I was working with Amazon Personalize. And before I jumped to Google, I was doing startups. So I was working with startups, helping them build their services and products and companies on AWS. I also did a little bit of time at Stripe, and now here I am.
Really impressive background. You said quite a lot there. We're going to get into all of it. Maybe first starting off explaining, what does it mean to be a solutions architect to you?
Oof, that's a good question. I think I need to go back in time to when I realized I wanted to be an architect. I was actually working as a software developer engineer at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And there was this guy who used to show up to the office all the time, like maybe once or twice a week. And he used to fly in from Chicago. We used to hang out, talk about the products that we were using. He will ask us a bunch of questions. He will take us out for lunch. And then I was always thinking that guy has the coolest job. So I looked him up on LinkedIn. And then I was like, oh, what is this architect role? And then I started looking into it, got a couple certs, started applying to every single architect position I saw on AWS itself. And then eventually ended up picking that role. And to answer your question about what is it to be an architect, I feel like is the connective tissue between the sales team and the engineering team. So I get to be extremely technical, but at the same time, I get to meet cool people like you, like my customers, and just have fun and explain to them how to use the technology and following best practices.
Very cool. Now, I know a lot of people that are very technical tend to struggle with having to be in the sales world because they think very technically, and then vice versa, people in the sales world or that are customer facing don't always want to dive in with the engineering teams. How have you been able to balance those two?
I like people a lot. I'm very curious. I like to learn. I like to ask them how's their day, and at the same time, I love geeking out on technology. So I feel like it was just kind of normal to me, because I mean, if you build a really cool product or if you have really cool technology, if people are not using it, then you kind of failed, right, at building the product. So I always found that people are very important in order to build and to create something useful. So I think that helps me balance. Is I always think about who is going to use this technology. For example, in Gen AI, we saw the explosion that we see with the ChatGPT, but that happened because people are using it. Right? It didn't happen because the technology is cool. The technology existed for a long time, but until you hit the nail with the people, I think the technology is just cool.
Okay, really great answer. So I'm reading you take a human-centric approach. And when you're looking at the technology, you think of, okay, who is the end user here? And if you think of the end user in addition to the technology that helps you be effective at your job, is that a good way to summarize?
Yes.
Okay, really good.
Really right way. Yeah.
And with that said, also, you talked about getting certifications. When you think about the skills that are needed for your job, maybe if you could explain why you got the certifications and then potentially what other skills are needed for you to be successful.
Yeah, I think certifications are not only a good way of testing your own skills, but also to be able to answer or like frame the technology through the questions that customers will ask you, right? Because to be honest, customers know more than you. So when you come to a call, or you're helping them architect something or design something, they are going to ask you questions that you just won't know, because they are the ones who are every day on the console, every day using the product, like hitting those roadblocks. So the closer that you can get to where your customers are, which means you need to learn how to use the product, and you need to learn how to use the features, and you need to know what the bugs are and what are the limitations. Realistically speaking, at your job, as an architect in this case, you're not going to be on the console all day, every day, because you're not building, right? Like you're not a software engineer. So certifications, doing the labs, doing the hands-on workshops, reading a bunch of the documentation, that kind of stuff is what helps you. And more than just getting the badge and just putting on LinkedIn, hey, I got a certification, is more about the knowledge that you get and the hands-on experience. And also the questions that they ask you in the tests are similar to the questions that a customer will ask you. So it kind of hits when a customer asks you that question, you have already answered it in an exam. So it helps a lot.
And with the certifications, like when I was looking at certifications, the process I took was, and I'm not saying this is right, I essentially went to look at like what are the highest paying certifications and then work backwards from that, because my focus was on money in addition to being educated on the technology. How do you approach certifications when there's so many out there?
The way that I see it is it comes down to what do you want to do, right? If you want to be, like we talked about, if you want to be more on the technical side, there are the developers the certified developer engineer, and you have the machine learning one. You have the networking, which is like super hard, or the security one, very technical. But then if you want to be a little bit more on the business side, the architects, even the cloud foundations are really useful just for people who want to get a 1,000 foot overview. If we talk about money, like there's a lot of money on being super technical. But also at some point, you're going to hit like that principal distinguished engineer level. And then after that, you have to get into the business eventually. So I think that it really comes down to what, if it's money, start being technical, but then transition to the business. If it's just technical, then just keep diving deep and keep building cool stuff.
Okay. Makes sense, and probably explains why I went from technical to business, because I was focused on the money. So also thinking about, like, you had experience at Amazon and now Google, or Google, Amazon, then Google again. But when I look at Amazon's portfolio, they have so many services. Same thing with Google and a lot of other companies. How do you think about technology from that perspective when there's like so many areas to focus on? And then even if you decide machine learning or networking or security, we know that as an architect, like when you're building these things, like there is no machine learning without networking and storage and like these other components. So how do you balance out like how deep to go in one area versus another?
Let me think, because the obvious answer is what is hot in the market. Right, like when Gen AI came out, I remember my close friend told me, he's like, dude, the next big thing is gonna be Gen AI. And I was like, what is Gen AI? It's just AI. And so I looked it up, and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. And then you see the announcements of company A, you see the announcements of company B, you start seeing all of the openings on LinkedIn, and you're like, okay, maybe I should start looking into that and focusing. But at the same time, if you follow the trends, you could burn yourself, right? Like, for example, when, how do you call this? Quantum computing was out there, right? That was a huge trend. Everybody thought that the world was going to end because of quantum. And until nowadays, we don't see that much quantum computing out there. It exists, but you're not going to bet your house. So that's one way, like the trends. The second is what really gets you going, right? Like if you put me to set up VPCs, like virtual private clouds, all day, every day, I think I might fall asleep or I'm going to need a lot of coffee. So you want to find something that makes you, like it helps you get out of bed and go work and be passionate about and just keep learning. And at the same time, make sure that it's useful, right? Networking, security, we're always going to need that. AI right now is the hot thing. But it really comes down to what you like and who's willing to pay for that.
Yeah, great answer. So what I read from that answer is focus on things that are emerging or trending, but at the same time, you should have intrinsic motivation and actually enjoy what you're doing, or else you're not going to be able to do it for very long. And then also make sure that it has a practical application. Because at the end of the day, if it's emerging, people are talking about it and you're interested in it, but no customer wants to buy it or it doesn't improve anyone's life, then it doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
that does make a lot of sense. When we talk about technical skills you can have, like obviously in your role, there's also soft skills that when you're in front of a customer or you're having to present, that's not really about how do you know Python or anything like that. So can you speak to maybe some of the soft skills that show up in your day-to-day across the roles you've had?
Yes. I'd say the biggest one is empathy, right? Just understanding the customer, understanding where they are. And if you think about the phases of development of an application or launching a product, discovery, big one. Then you go into like a POC maybe, or like a scoping, then the POC, then you go like alpha, beta, and then staging, and then production. And then after you launch into production, you have you have to maintain the application. So where in that journey is your customer, and understanding what they're going through in that particular phase, and being able to actually just show up to a call and be like, dude, how you doing? Like how are the tests going? Or like if they're already in production, like what are your metrics? How are they looking like? Do you need any help? Are there any escalation tickets that I need to look at? If we're still like on the discovery, you're talking to executives. You're making sure that you are mapping the technology to the business value that you're gonna bring from building this application, and you need to really understand like even the politics of it, right? Like you have an executive, you have people who report to the executive. Maybe you have another executive over there that is not good friends with this one. So, but you need to use the skills and the budget in that team. So, like, how do you manage all of that? Is through empathy, right? Like, you need to understand. You need to make sure that your customers are comfortable with you, that they trust you. We're not trying to upsell them anything, right? Like, we're literally trying to help them solve a business problem and bring some value to the technology. So just going in with that mindset and making sure that you're asking questions and that you're understanding what they are, and you're not just being a sales guy. That I think that's the biggest skill, softest skill that you need to have. Is just these are people, right? Like more than anything, and you need to understand where they are.
Okay. From that description, it sounds like you're merging kind of a lot of different roles in your day-to-day. There's a little bit of program management, sales, solution architecture, and so forth. Have you had roles in the past that like were not a solution architect role that you were able to like pull various elements out of like your previous experience into the current one? And I'm asking this because people may listen to you and say, oh man, this guy's so cool. I want to work at Google and be an architect, but they may not be an architect now. And they're like, okay, well, I don't know how my job translates. So is it any skills from like other industries that you've worked in that you've been able to translate into your current role that you can speak on?
Yeah, definitely. So I started my career, my official quote career, right, on software development. So I was a software engineer. So I've been on the other side of the customer, right? Like writing the code, finding the bugs, opening tickets, like hammering the product team from the other end, from the buy side, let's put it. So that helped, I think, because I can understand where the developer is coming from. I can understand where the pain points are, like the kind of like the process of it. So that helped me a lot. At the same time, before that, I've always liked sales. Right? Like I used to buy and sell motorcycles on Craigslist. I think I did like 6 or 7 of those deals, like buy them in the winter, use them, fix them up if I need to, and ride them all the way through the middle of the summer. And now in the winter, they're cheap. In the middle of the summer, they're expensive. So buy low, say high, sell high. So I did that. I used to flip phones. I used to sell DirecTV. Like I always liked selling. And so I think from a sales perspective, I love that. And then from an engineering perspective, I also geek out on a bunch of the stuff, like jailbreaking iPhones and stuff like that. So, and then I saw this guy like who used to just come out, hang out with us, talk about technology, take us out for lunch. And I was like, that's where I can mix both of them. So I'll say if someone is out there and wants to be an architect, just go out there. Like look at Craigslist and start doing deals, or go build an app or something that you find very interesting. If you need more of the technical skills nowadays, with the explosion of AI, it's really easy to write code. It's really easy to write a cold email. So you have the tools. You have to go and you have to go get them, and you have a goal, right? Like in this case, if you want to be an architect, go be an architect.
Okay, really great answer. Would you say in sales, because a lot of people can be intimidated, when you first started selling motorcycles or like phones or direct TV, did you immediately have confidence, or did it come later in the process?
No, man. I think it's a skill that you need to build. Right? Like until nowadays, I still get sort of nervous, right? When you're doing a deal. And the best way of doing something is smile, first of all. Make sure that the other person is comfortable with you, that you're comfortable with the other person. And I lost the thought that I was going to say. But be prepared, right? Like, do your research. If you're buying a motorcycle, like, you better know the motorcycle that you're buying. Like, you better know the market of the motorcycle. Like, what were the last 10 sales, or like what is the seasonality of the price of the bike, or like are there other bikes out there? Is this bike well priced? Like, what are the indicators that I need to look at in the bike to see if it's been dropped or not? So you have to really dive deep. And then once you're there, that's going to help you feel comfortable. But just remember, there's always going to be that little doubt in your head. It's like, am I making a good deal? Am I not making a good deal? Is this guy trying to screw me over? Right? Like, so be a little bit, be prepared, and be, how do you call this? It's not skeptical, but be ready. That's it. Like, so to answer your question, it's fun, but I feel like you need to practice it. Like, you have to do it. You're gonna screw up a couple of times, which is fine, because those are good lessons, and then it starts getting a little bit easier. But I don't think you ever get to that level of like, oh my god, I can always go buy and sell and get it right.
Okay, that really great answer. The two things I picked out there, which one recently came up yesterday. I was listening to an interview with one of Tom Brady, a professional NFL player's teammates, and they were asking him about this new contract he got with Fox News or Fox Media, because he got a contract for, I think it's like $500 million over 10 years or something ridiculous like that. And yeah, I know I'm in the wrong industry, obviously. But he got the contract, and the teammate said, "Hey, do you think he's going to be good, or you think he's going to be bad at it? He's never done it before. That's quite a lot of money," and so forth. And the teammate immediately responded, "He'll be prepared." And the underlying message in that is like, it doesn't, like, good or bad comes based off of your preparation. So I love that you gave that answer too, of like, be prepared. You can't control everything else. And the other thing I heard too, which I read this maybe 10 years ago, there's a famous actress by the name of Audrey Hepburn. She's won like Oscars and was on Broadway. And they said that even at 60 years old, she would be so nervous when she went out to perform that she would throw up before her sets. But she was still able to go out and perform. And this is after she had all that success. So a lot of times I do try to tell people, like, you may never get past the point of like having anxiety or being nervous about something, but the preparation makes you feel more comfortable, and so does repetition. And if you kind of agree internally that, hey, I want to do this thing, but I'm going to have these feelings, but I'm still going to move forward, then you're going to be able to go on and be successful. So I really love that that's kind of embodied in your answer. Thinking about some of your history also, so I see you also have like education and leadership. I'm curious how that is translated into your role, and have you had opportunities to like lead teams or be a leader, or do you have aspirations towards moving into management?
Yeah. So funny you brought that up, because it brings me a lot of good memories from school. And one of the biggest memories that I have from that particular, it was a small, it was a minor, it was a little bit over, almost like I think I had to do it for 2 years. But in the very first class, they make you sing in front of people. Very, very first class, okay. You know, like 20-year-old me, like 19-year-old me, just showing up to this class, like he thinks it's gonna be cool, and the professor puts you in front of the class and makes you sing your favorite song.
What song did you choose? I'm curious.
Which one did I chose a song in Spanish? Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna sing on the podcast.
That was the next question.
Yeah, but so that just shows you that leadership is, you have to be comfortable at being uncomfortable, right? And that's the biggest thing that I learned from the 2 years. Right? After that, they make you do like internships and a bunch of other stuff. And I feel like when you're a leader, right? And you have people looking up to you and people asking you questions that you don't know the answer, or you need to help them, or you need to sit down with them and help them figure things out, like work things through. You're going to be uncomfortable, right? And you have to be able to say, I don't know, or just to be able to open up to your team, to your people, because you are a tool. I don't know if a tool is a good word, but you are the enabler for them to achieve their objective. So that's the biggest learning I have from leadership. And yes, I've led a couple of people. I've done a couple of startups, and I also had a lot of indirect reports at Amazon, and then at Stripe I was building a team. And now here at Google, I'm an IC, individual contributor. But yes, I am looking to build a team. I think there's a lot of work to do in AI. So that's the next natural transition in my career.
Okay. And I can vouch for your leadership. I reported to you when I was at Amazon, even though it didn't look like that on paper. So I definitely took your guidance. But to your point on like the leadership and having to sing and the being comfortable with being uncomfortable aspect, I see where you mentioned you went from Blue Cross Blue Shield to like AWS and Google, which I kind of view in the cloud sense, at least, like they're very similar. But then Stripe is like a business that's focused in a specific domain. Mm-hmm. How would you maybe speak to someone that is maybe working in an industry and they're nervous about going over to another industry, or they're working as a generalist and now they need to be more specific? How have you been able to navigate that?
Well, so I'll give you a little bit of background and I answer your question. When I was at Amazon, I was the cloud, right? Like you're on the sales side. You have a bunch of products. I specialized a little bit, well, a lot on AWS in AI/ML. But then I was going from AI/ML to the financial services, right, in world. And that is something that I've always been passionate about. Like my father is a big financial services guy. And I always liked the numbers, right? Like sales numbers, deals. So going into the industry, it was between, do I go to the sell side again? Because I was between Google and Stripe at the time. Do I stay on my comfort zone, or do I want to kind of like explore a new area and like feel motivated and feel challenged again? So that's kind of like what I would say. If you're peaking, it really comes down to, do you want to stay on your comfort zone, which is 1,000% fine, as long as you're still growing, because you are going to feel confident, you know what you're doing, is an accelerator. But also challenging yourself on a new industry is going to bring you that extra push. At least to me, it brought me that extra push of like, hey, now I need to learn. Now I got to prove myself again. Now I need to position myself as a thought leader in this particular industry. So everything is new. It's like it's very motivating. So in this case, instead of going with my comfort zone and staying on the cloud, staying on the sales side, I decided to go into Stripe, learn new skills, learn new things in this industry, and meet new people, right? Because we all know each other. Well, maybe not all know each other, but like we know each other across companies, across cloud. So it was good also to get a refresh of like meeting new people in this industry, banks, and tech, like the fintech. So it was, I would say, if someone is looking to go into buy side versus sell side, it really comes down to, if you're already good at something and you think that you can be the best and that's going to help you in your career, then stay. But if you are looking for a refresh, or you're looking to learn something new and meet new people and all of these new cool things, but they're new and they're uncertain and it could be scary, but it brings you that excitement, then go for that one, right? Like, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. It's more like consequences. It's like, is it gonna play out or not? And you can always go back to your comfort zone again. Like I did. I went back to Google.
Yeah. Actually, that's a great point. You can always go back to your comfort zone. Now, with that said, so you're given the conclusion of like making an assessment of whether I want to be in my comfort zone or not, or whether I want to be challenged with something new or stay with what I know and dive deeper into that. How often do you think about that? Which another way to ask this question is to say, like, when you're going from company to company, like, how do you decide whether you stay for 2 years versus 20 years versus 2 months versus maybe not 2 days, but however long you stay? Like, how do you make those decisions? How often do you make those decisions?
I think when you stop learning is a big red flag, right? Like if you're not learning, if you're not being challenged, if you're bored, if you're dragging your feet to go to the office, or like go to your desk to work in your pajamas, or you're working in your pajamas, probably a good time to start thinking like, hey, is this really where I want to be? Am I growing? What are my goals? Of course, it also comes down to the stage in life. Like if I had kids or I had a family and I had my second born coming my way, like something like that, I would say probably, stay where you are. Like be a little bit more stable. But if you have the drive, if you have the skills, and you think that you can generate bigger impact on something else or somewhere else, on another role or another team, it doesn't really need to be other company, but it could be in the same company. Or you just want to learn something, if you're curious, go for it. I would say there is nothing wrong with just taking a gamble on yourself and just be comfortable and be confident and go for it. The way that I see it is, I think I found that every 2 years is a good kind of like, from a time-wise perspective, a good checkpoint. You don't need to make the jump, but in 2 years you start thinking like, okay, I met the people. I kind of have an idea where my career is going for. I like this, I don't like this. And then you start thinking about what is my next step, either vertical or horizontal or diagonal growth, company-wise. And then then I've made the choice of like every 2 years, looking at that and making a decision, either start looking or double down or, that. Those are the two options that I have.
Okay, really great. And you also alluded to your father being big in financial services, and a lot of people that have achieved your level of success have like a really great social network. So can you speak about the people maybe outside of work or in work that have influenced you, be it family or mentors that have allowed you to achieve the level of success you have today?
Yeah, I think my dad has always been a good example to follow, right? Like, we came from Ecuador, and I see him and my mom, like both of them, like fight really hard to like get us, me and my sister, to like to a position where we can be present and execute on the opportunities that have been presented. So very, very, very thankful to them. And then I can always call them, even if it's like 2 a.m. and I'm like working hard and I'm like, okay, I need a break, I need to talk to someone. They will always pick up the phone. So I'm very grateful and like very privileged to have that in my life. From a work perspective, I remember the guy who interviewed me. His name is Chris. You know him, Chris King, and now he's the head of product at Protect AI. He taught me a lot. Even my first week, he put me in front of a customer without me finishing my training. So that was, at least we're not on Amazon, either one of us, so I can tell you that story. But I love being challenged, and I think he challenged me a lot. And there's other people, it would take me too long to name them all, but having people that you trust and that you can pick up the phone and call them when you're going through like even a breakup or anything, just making that deep connection that is not just about work. Even with you, Jamal, like we worked the deal at Intuit, at Amazon with Intuit, and now we're having here these conversations. You're at Microsoft, I'm at Google. So building these relationships really, really empower you to keep growing in your career. You never know who's gonna be the next CEO of Microsoft. Could be you. So like it's always good to be friendly and be nice, and also be supportive to the people that are in your network.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And shout out to Chris King. He and I go way back from the IBM days, and then we both went to Amazon, and he's now doing amazing things with Protect AI. So yep. Glad to hear he's been instrumental in your life. Thinking about also the other side of that coin, do you spend time mentoring people? And are there any like common themes that you see when you're mentoring people that you'd like to share here?
Yes, I do spend a lot of time mentoring people. I remember I've done a couple of startups. Right. And on those startups, they didn't go anywhere. But that's just the startup life. In those startups, I always thought to myself, if I was in my team's career stage and position, right? Like I had people reporting to me. I always thought about, hey, even if this thing doesn't work out, what are you getting out of this? And I'm very upfront when I ask those questions. Is, hey, let me help you build an example that you can then go and talk to someone else. Right? Like even if it's small, like GitHub repo that you can then go talk. I need you to be able to articulate everything that we did. and like all the way from design all the way to production. If we talk about from a technical perspective, and then I enable them to do that, and then I'm there sending them articles, like sending them videos. They might find me annoying, but like that's I think just allowing people to grow by themselves, but just giving them a little bit of guidance. Not micromanagement. I hate micromanagement. But just being there and like, hey, pick up. You can call me. We don't have to talk about work. You can just tell me what was your last workout. Just being there, being present for someone, I think it goes a long way. And I think people get to know you, get to learn from you. And I am very open when I'm mentoring people. It's just, hey, I'm here. I'm here for you more than for me. So like whatever you need, I'm happy to help.
Okay, very noble approach. And you had mentioned the startup. I do see you have like just generally an entrepreneurial background. You talked about like the sales stuff you did and motorcycles and learning trends, which even I didn't know, and I felt like I knew a lot about you. And then also you had a formal startup. You're probably the perfect person to talk about like how do you think of the balance between corporate America versus a startup entrepreneurial route? There's people that are entrepreneurs that are like, I don't know if I want to go to corporate America, like my innovation may be stifled. And then there's people that are in corporate America that may want to be a little bit more innovative, but they're afraid of like the lack of security blanket that corporate America or working at a big company can often provide. Can you maybe speak to that?
Yeah, and I might have a bit of an extreme look into this, right? Like you said, the money is a big piece, and like if you absolutely don't care about money, I would say the startup life is your life, right? Like go for it. The multipliers are amazing. You can go from like $1 in revenue to like $1 billion in like 5-6 years if you're really good and you have a great team and you have the backing. So it's very exciting. But like you also said, the security piece is very difficult. Also in my case, there was immigration, pieces in there that I had to consider. Coming out of college, I had 2 great ideas. We were working on them, but then I realized I was like, wait, if I risk all of that, I'm also risking my immigration status, which is it's something that I cannot put a dollar amount to it, and it would have just been a lot, right? So then that's why when I would say the hybrid route, I was doing both: the startup, the motorcycles, and then the corporate America with the software engineering, and then you start realizing, hey, corporate America is actually not bad. It's like great people. You get to meet great people. That's what I told you. It's extreme view, right? Like you can make arguments on both sides, but it's actually not as bad as you make it, like people make it sound. You get to meet good people. You get paid well. If you're in a role that allows you to travel, you get to see the world. You get to meet other people. Like you have the backing of a big company. You have the brand. You have the name. In my case, it allowed me to get my immigration status, the green card. So it's not bad. And if you're picking on both, I'll say make this the analysis, right? The strengths, how do you call it? The SWOT analysis, the strength, weaknesses, and the other 2 stuff I don't remember. And then make the decision on that. And you can always do both at the same time, as long as there is no conflict of interest, right? Don't get in trouble. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive, and I think it really comes down to where you are in life. I mean, if you have the chance, if you don't care, go for the startup. The startups are amazing. Eventually I would like to have one, but I think at this point in my life and career, I'm still learning. In corporate America, I'm meeting good people, and it's not that bad.
Okay. Well, yeah, I love the point that you made. Like they aren't mutually exclusive. There's been a lot of people who have created great companies and they started like while they're at work and then they got to a maturity level that they ultimately left. And also love the positive reframing that corporate America is not that bad, although I don't know if I always agree with you, but in general, it's good to be positive versus negative. Maybe transitioning from the entrepreneurial aspect into generative AI, which is the area you cover. Now, the average person listening is not going to be as deeply technical and as intelligent as you are on the subject, but at a high level, can you explain like generative AI and like why it matters and why it's as popular as it is now?
Yeah, I think good question. I think generative AI at this point in time is the next, is the big toy, right? Like I was talking about this with my dad the other day. My dad was telling me, I don't remember last time I saw in the market so much heat on something. And maybe the last one was like virtualization or like the cloud. Is probably the last one. But Gen AI at this point is allowing people to, first of all, be very productive. It helps a lot. If you know how to use it and you know how to use it as a tool, it's great. Right? Like it allows you to be faster, code faster, cold emails, as I talked about, editing things, like summarizing things. It just enables people to save time. Now, when we talk about from an enterprise or like use case perspective, it really comes down to three things. It comes down to automation, so like saving time, like internal value, like how many hours am I saving. Second one is user experience, right? Like how do I improve my user experience that when they come to my website, maybe my search bar is not good. And now with Gen AI, you can search things, you can do recommendations, you can summarize, you can do extraction, things like that. And the third one is generating income or generating a new stream of revenue. So when you think about like ChatGPT, for example, with their GPT store, I think that's crazy, right? Like it could be the next iOS, the next Apple store, but for generative AI. Now companies are going to start seeing that they're going to start building schemas, and they're going to start building entry points to their data and to their enterprise to be able to generate that income, that stream of income. It could be that they're selling the data, they're selling the API access, they're selling something through Gen AI. So those are the three things: automation, user experience, and revenue that this technology has enabled companies to pursue, which was beforehand, it was extremely difficult. Like if you think about how do you summarize a 500-page article with meaning, right? Like it's not just, hey, let me summarize this paragraph and then run MapReduce. No, now that thing understands and can actually tell you exactly even the tone, down to the tone. Like I want to make it funny, and then it will make it sort of funny, right? Like or I might want to make it serious or more informal. That level of detail and that level of configuration was not available. Like NLP has been available for a while, but these other like almost like magic things are what Gen AI is exposing us to at the moment.
MapReduce is a term that I haven't heard in quite some time, so glad that you're reviving it. Thinking about your 1 and your 3, so the automation aspect and the generation of new income. Some people will look at that and say, okay, well, we're automating things, and it's like, as a person working at a company, now something that took me an hour can be done in 10 minutes. But as technology goes to infinity, now something that you needed me for, you no longer need me for. And the same thing with generation of new revenue. Like maybe that revenue beforehand, because the task was still being done, is generated from an artist or a human being. And now all of a sudden it's done by software, and that individual is no longer needed. Mm-hmm. I know you're at the architect level, but as you're pulling together like the technology, like is there the human element that you think of outside of the actual technology and producing new software solutions?
Yes. And these are conversations that we're having with customers like pretty much every day. And like I have customers that are telling me, hey, like I have a team overseas that I need to be able to make them more efficient. That's how they call it, make it more efficient, right? AKA, I need to save either money or man's hour. Now, the technology itself is good, but I would say is not good enough, right? Like you still need people to kind of like steer this thing into an accuracy level that it makes sense to be able to automate. So now let's say you have a team that spends 700 hours on a particular task. If we can save half of it, that's 350 hours. Now you can have that team go work on something else. So for example, data labeling is a big piece for machine learning. Right now, you are not going to go hire new people to go data label because they're super expensive. But if you already have them and you can use that, the manpower to go and do data labeling instead of wasting time just annotating things and doing like not meaningful tasks, I think that's going to be better. Yes, we need to acknowledge it's gonna change the industry. Like a lot of roles are gonna be automated, but we saw that when the cloud came out, right? Like the cloud also got rid of roles that were almost like not outsourced, but like they were just, you transition that into something else. There's new roles like prompt engineering, right? Like last year there was no prompt engineering. Now you look at LinkedIn, there's like prompt engineering jobs that are paying six figures. Like that was not there, and that's probably better than someone just reading through a document and extracting pieces. That's probably not a six-figure role. So now things will evolve. Yes, roles are going to be automated. Roles are also going to be created, and I think we're just at the tip of the spear because the technology is good, but it's not good enough quite yet. So we still need humans to review, to make sure that this thing is not hallucinating and creating the next political trouble. Right? Like it just, there's still treated with a grain of salt, but hopefully we'll get there because I think from a society perspective, it will allow innovation. Right? Like if you think about how long it takes to create a startup nowadays versus how long it took to create a startup 10 years ago. I remember 10 years ago when I was making my first one, it took a lot of work, like hundreds of hours just writing an HTML page because I had to go and edit the CSS and like edit the field. Now I can go into Generative and be like, hey, create me a page X, Y, and Z with the color schema, and here are the hex codes, and it's gonna go and give me the code. So now I saved, I don't know, 100 hours worth of work, and that allows me to create the next big thing. It could create the next big tool. So again, staying positive. Jobs are going to be automated. Jobs are going to be created. But from a bigger scheme of things, society-wise, I think it's going to create a positive impact in the way that we're going to see more innovation. We're going to see the next big things. And we're going to see, hopefully, flying cars at some point, right? Like, why haven't we solved that? Because it takes a lot of time. So if this can save you some time, then why not go for it?
Okay, really. And before you even get to the creation of the web page, I've seen Gen AI help people like filing for their business with the state. Like that is also a barrier to entry for a lot of people. How do you file an LLC or an S-type corporation or C-type corporation? And this thing can walk you through it with a conversational interface. So I do agree with you. Just to recap some of the things you said, from an automation perspective, some of the roles that are going to be automated are things that we probably wanted to automate anyway, because now this frees up people to do things that are going to be like more relevant to their time and can drive more impact on the company. And then also going back to something you said earlier, which you kind of said in a more elongated version now, being comfortable with change. A lot of people that I see, and to your point, like cloud came along and people are like, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything. And Gen AI comes and everything comes along and they feel that way. But some of it has to do with people not being comfortable with change, but also realizing that this change can have impact and doing so focusing on it and governing it in a responsible way seems like it makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad to hear people like you that are at the forefront are also thinking in this level too. Maybe asking another question. So a lot of people, like I said, will hear this and they're like, oh my God, I got to be Luis. What are the skills that you recommend for somebody who wants to get into generative AI, or what are the areas they should focus on, or where do they even go to get those skills?
Great question. So nowadays, there's a lot out there that you can do to prepare yourself. I would say you don't need to even enroll in a school. And like you could start as easy as, hey, let me look up a bunch of YouTube videos. But I think the biggest advice that I can give someone who's trying to get into Gen AI is be curious. Right? Like the way that I did it was I went and I tried to break ChatGPT when it came out last year. I was asking a shit ton of questions. Sorry about that.
Like tried to hack it?
Like ask questions, like push it all the way till the thing tells you, I don't know. Like I can tell you exactly what I was doing. I was having this idea of an investment strategy that is called dividend harvesting. I don't know if you have heard of it. You just buy before the ex-dividend date, you hold the stock, you harvest the dividend, and then you sell it when it recovers a little bit because the market adjusts. It does like a mess. So if you look at it from a technical perspective, if Gen AI is so nice and it's so good, then this thing should be able to historically go look at the price of a dividend stock and then calculate the S function. I don't even know which math function does the best, but because Gen AI, right, it's magic. It should be able to do that. Tell me when is the best day to buy and then to sell so I can harvest the dividend and then I can become a millionaire, right? I'm not a millionaire. meaning that thing didn't work. So it's not magic. Like there's limitations. So that was one of the limitations I was pushing that thing to see how far I can take it. It didn't
or
work.
maybe it did work, but you're telling us it didn't work because you don't want us to follow the same path and get rich like you.
I just told you what you need to do. If you can find better prompts that do that thing, let me know so we can start a fund, right? Because we need volume. You're making a couple percentage points per quarter, which is still pretty good. Now, going back to the question, right? Like, be curious. Be really curious. Get to know how this thing actually works. And in anything in life, right? If you know how something works, if you dove so deep that you are not an expert, but like you have a good understanding of how things work, you're going to find the loops, the loopholes. You're going to find the limitations. You're going to find new use cases, right? So in this case, if you want to learn about Gen AI, go use it, right? And when you go to an interview, you can go and tell them the story that I just told you, right? Like I used Gen AI to create a dividend investment strategy that didn't work. And now let me explain to you why it didn't work. And that just showcases to someone, like you put in the time, put in the effort, you did your reading, you did your homework, and you know how it works, which is what we need right now in the industry. Is I need people who can come and tell me, Luis, have you tried this? And if I say no, then that's my problem, right? Because I didn't dive deep enough. But that's kudos to you, because now you know more than the experts on the field. And to be an expert on the field, you have to go do it. You have to go spend the time, put in the hours. YouTube, A Cloud Guru is pretty good. I know Google, Amazon have a really good training. Microsoft too. They have really good training certifications that you can do. But the resources are out there. To get my ML certification, I did not spend $1 outside of the exam price, but I didn't spend $1 on prep, right? Like 5 years, 10 years ago, you had to probably go sign up in a school. Now you don't. No, just go and figure out what's free and go break the thing, or go find out the next big dividend investment strategy using ChatGPT.
Okay. Yeah, really great answer. And also a great point that a lot of this stuff is free. And I love how you said, like, going out and just trying something and then going into an interview and having a real world experience of like, hey, I tried this, I tried to push the limits. That does go a long way, because in a job, if your manager says, hey, we got to do this thing, and you're going out and working on it, and it just so happens to be Gen AI, that's a lot different from saying, like, look, my job wasn't focused on this, but outside of that, I took interest in this thing. I pushed it to the limit. I got the certification. I think that goes a long way, and especially in emerging technologies where it may have only been around for a year or two. So your 6 months worth of experience puts you kind of in a top percentile of people that have experience in the world. So I love the kind of like innovative go-getter approach. You've given a lot of great advice today. As we're wrapping up, is there any last thing that you'd like to leave people with that are listening to this to kind of motivate them to either achieve your level of success or go past?
Yeah. You got it. To whoever is listening out there, you know, like I came from Ecuador. If you're here and you're in Ecuador or anywhere in the world, I mean, just dive deep, be passionate, be positive, and don't give up. Like, there is really no reason to give up. If you fail, it doesn't matter, because you learn and you get up. And I told this to my sister the other day. The difference between successful people and non-successful people. I don't like labeling people like that, but like the one of the traits of successful people is the speed to which they can get up and go try it again, right? Because you're gonna fail, but maybe take a day and go to the gym, or like go get yourself some ice cream and learn your lesson, and then you go and try it again. But never give up. There is no point of giving up. What else are you gonna do? Nothing. Then why did you start at the first place? So don't give up. You got it, and just keep going. Go figure it out. Dive deep.
Okay. Really well said. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all of your knowledge today. And hopefully we'll have you on for next season and see where you're at then and what you're doing, which may be Gen AI, maybe quantum computing, or maybe something else. But thanks for your time, man.
We'll see. Yeah. Thank you, Jamal. Appreciate it.
And that wraps our show for today. I want to thank you for listening to the Emerging Podcast with your host, Jamal Robinson. and ask that you like and subscribe to the podcast across your favorite platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, Google Podcast, and Amazon Music. It's free for you and significantly helps out the show. You can also check out our newsletter on LinkedIn. I hope this show has added some value in your life, and until next time, peace.